Alright, so welcome back to me building another Bioactive vivarium. I've only done this once before, so all of the links to my previous build will be below, as well as how to convert a 20-gallon aquarium into a 20-gallon vivarium. That's standing upright. So now I'm just going to be building the background and then planting the tank in this video. So basically just the rundown of how to do a bioactive setup. Right now I'm just messing around with the pieces and seeing where they'd fit. I had a sketch that I had done, kind of an idea of where I wanted to place things, but things on paper and then things actually being put together is two very different things. So I was just kind of messing around and seeing if that's still where I wanted things or if I need to move anything based off of the actual sizes and stuff, because my measurements aren't so accurate, and there's that sketch that I have. So some of the things that I thought I would be doing ended up getting moved or just not done altogether. So, you know, it's always good to double check to see how things fit inside the tank before you start going ahead and making everything permanent. So yeah, that's all I'm doing. And even then, checking things, sometimes things don't always end up right. One of my 4-inch pots on the background actually is a little bit too tilted forward, so now I have to kind of deal with that, and hopefully the plant is okay, because, you know, these are things that you don't necessarily plan for all the time. So now I just have a coconut liner, and I'm going to be cutting that in order to give Clyde, which is the Crested Gecko I'll be putting in this cage, just something else to grab on, and it will add a little bit of texture to the background, so that way we're not just using all foam on the background. I also had this in case I wanted to do anything extra with it, like on the sides and stuff, but I decided to just keep it simple. So I'm cutting this to the size of the hide that I'm going to be foaming and placed in as part of the background. And honestly, if you're going to get coconut liners, just go ahead and get them from like Lowe's and stuff, because Petco will try to overcharge you for a coconut liner as like a hermit crab climbing background for like 10 bucks when they sell coconut liners for literally like $1 and some change. So, you know, that's just my little rant today about how pet stores try to rip you off. So, just cutting that to size, and then I cut out an extra piece, and I just kind of messed with where I was going to place it, because I just kind of cut it out not knowing what I was going to do with it, but I ended up putting it behind this like really cool piece of driftwood that almost looks like a tree, just to help give some texture and help bring out the really cool details of it without it getting covered in too much foam. So now we're just going to take some silicone and silicone both of those pieces of the coconut liner into place. I recommend using black or brown silicone. Using white silicone is a disaster. This is coming from someone who used white silicone last time, so you know, just like, let's not do that. Also, for any concerns about the heat mat that's back there, I'm probably moving the heat mat at some point. I just haven't gotten around to moving it because I don't know how it would affect the silicone. So if anyone wanted to leave me a kind comment about that, yeah, I'm aware that that's there. Alright, so now I'm just measuring to make sure that this piece of wood is the correct distance from the bottom. It's very important that it touches the substrate once we put it in. So now I'm using Gaps and Cracks by Great Stuff Expanding Foam. This is going to be our background, and I made sure that I filled up my planters with just a roll of what's that stuff called? Paper towel, so that way they didn't get filled with any foam. So literally every time I use these things, the straws always come freaking flying off because of the pressure. I don't know why. I have the worst luck, so you could see the straw just spinning around trying to fly off. So first I did the bottom section. I was going to wait to do this top section because this piece of wood has to be held in place pretty much. But I went ahead and did the top section as well because I realized this was probably the best move. It didn't end up exactly where I would have liked it just because the wood shifted. And at first I was going to be stuck there holding it forever, but eventually I wised up and used a piece of thread to tie it to hold itself in place. So this is the second time I've done this to myself, but literally just figure out how to tie the wood so that you don't have to sit there for 30 plus minutes holding a piece of wood in the most uncomfortable position forever. So here it is once it's completely cured. I believe I gave it 24 hours to completely poof up. So now you're going to have to carve away the smooth surface that the foam has. That way you give it some texture for when we add on the silicone, which we'll then put eco earth and stuff on top of in order to create a nice naturalistic background. And carving also gives you the opportunity to carve away any mistakes that you might have made, places where the foam filled up that it shouldn't have. And it helps you to kind of decide if you want to go with a smoother texture, a rougher texture, like if you're trying to make it look more rugged or more nice. It just gives you that freedom to kind of shape this background however you would like. And cutting the foam honestly takes forever. It's one of the longest parts of this entire process. And I definitely did not film the whole process for you guys because I don't think you want to sit through just hours of footage of me cutting foam. Like, there's a lot of foam to be cut. Why? Why would you get such a cheap plastic glove? So now I'm just mapping out where I'm going to be putting my silicone. I worked my silicone in sections because it dries so fast the dirt will not stick to it properly if you try to do the whole thing at once in my experience. So I broke this up into 4 separate sections, and you definitely want to use black or brown all-purpose 100% silicone. This way, if any of the dirt falls off of the background, you're still going to have some nice dark coverage underneath it. And let me tell you, siliconing is literally the worst part of this entire process. If there was any way to get around it, I 100% would. So now you're just going to be packing on that dirt. I also have some sphagnum moss and stuff mixed in there so that way it gives the background more of a texture and it's not just flat. And I always use a paintbrush when applying the silicone. The first time I ever did it, I applied it just with my hands, and that's such a mess. You definitely want to wear gloves when you're doing this because silicone is disgusting. It gets everywhere, and it's really hard to get off because you can't just wash it off with water. It's not water-based. It will not go away. So there I am just patting on the dirt in these sections. You definitely want to use a lot of Eco Earth. So now you're just going to tap off the excess Eco Earth. I allowed mine to cure for 24 hours, and then I just hit on the back of the tank as I kind of bring it forward. This loosens up all of that loose substrate just because you do pack a lot on at first, so you don't want anything falling off while your animal's trying to climb up the background. He'll just be grabbing onto loose dirt and then fall, so that wouldn't be fun. So I also just use my hands kind of to knock off any of the loose substrate, and it definitely takes a bit of time to get it all off. After this, I didn't film it, but I did use a vacuum cleaner to vacuum up all the dirt that I couldn't reuse that falls towards the bottom, and I just kind of ran it across the background so that way any dirt that was still kind of sticking on but not super hard was pulled off. So now for the drainage layer, I'm using pea gravel. You could use hydro balls or any other kind of substrate thing, but I decided to use pea gravel because it is cheaper and I still had a bunch left over from when I did my first tank. And I'm measuring just to make sure that my drainage layer is deep enough. I'm basing these measurements off of the other tank because it's literally saying right next to each other. And then I cut fiber carbon window screen mesh as my drainage layer. So now we interrupt this program to bring you an unboxing from Josh's Frogs. This video is most definitely not sponsored. I just bought a lot of stuff from Josh's Frogs for this next part, so that's why I decided to include my whole unboxing because I personally really like unboxings. So when I opened it up, the first thing I noticed is that they actually gave me a nice little note saying that they hope that I enjoyed my plants and everything. So that was very nice to see that they actually took the time to like write something and put a little thank you and contact information in there. I've ordered from them once before, so I decided to order again for this part, and this was just some information about how to take care of the plants, speaking that they've been stuck in a box for 2 or more days. My guys were only stuck in a box for 2 days though, and they definitely did not look too bad at all. And so now we have some leaf litter. This is just magnolia leaf litter. I have a magnolia tree. I could have gotten leaf litter, but my backyard does get sprayed for pesticides and fertilizers, so you don't want that when you're getting leaf litter for your animals. You can get it from an area like a woodland area that does not get sprayed. However, I didn't find any with magnolia leaves, and I didn't want to grab random leaves that I didn't know what plant they came from. So those are already nice and sterilized. And then we have our ABG mixed, which is literally just a good way for plants and stuff in bioactive vivariums. Has a lot of pieces of moss and stuff, so that way your substrate will remain moist, but it won't remain too heavily soaked to cause root rot. Then we have our plants that I got. So excuse me trying to pronounce their scientific names. I prefer scientific names just because I don't know. So the first one is a peperomia. It's also called pepper spot. This is just going to be one of our background plants. It's actually way cuter than what I thought it was going to be. It has these nice little round waxy leaves that are super cute. And it's just a nice draping plant for over the background. I'll be pinning it up against the background once the plant gets bigger, and it's just going to be a really good addition. Then we have the plant that I was so excited to get. I literally had to order this ASAP because they only had one in stock left, and I was not going to let this baby go out of my hands. This is my Begonia monas. Literally such a gorgeous plant. It has these nice dark green leaves, and then it has little, I'm sure they're not considered hairs, but what's basically like fuzz all over it that's like a light pink to red to kind of purplish color, and it makes these leaves have this very nice like kind of sheen to them. Depending on how you're looking at them, they might appear kind of red or mostly green. It's just a super gorgeous plant, and it will flower if I give it the right conditions, so hopefully I'll be able to get flowering in Clyde's cage, because I mean, just look at this beauty. She is so gorgeous. You couldn't hear it, but I was literally just whispering to myself this whole time, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, she's so beautiful. I was so excited for this plant. So this one live in here for a little bit. Maybe so too small down. And you can hear me literally whispering, I hope they're not dead. So sorry for that ASMR moment, but I hate ASMR, but I just kind of had to do it to you guys. So now we have my dwarf white isopods. They actually weren't guaranteed live arrival because Alabama is so freaking hot, let me tell you. Yeah, so my weather was not optimal, but they all lived, they all made it. So here these little guys are. So I already added in the ABG mix and the drainage layer divider. Now I'm just adding in my own ABG mix that I had made before that didn't really work out that well. I just needed some extra dirt because I didn't anticipate how much dirt I actually needed. So that first plant I put in was the Dracena duramensis. Oh gosh, that's Latin. Then we have that begonia right over there. Both of the Durmenis I got from Lowe's, so those were not included in the Josh's Frog haul because I got them cheaper at Lowe's. Sorry, Josh's Frogs, not sorry, I saved money. So I made the mistake of planting the foreground plants before I planted the background plants, so I kind of ended up dumping dirt on them, which was really irritating because the plants were already wet because I had washed them off from their dirt and stuff that they had previously been planted in just to make sure that they're clean and safe for Clyde. So the dirt stuck to them 100%, and I tried to pull them up again and shake them off, but honestly it did not work that well. As one would expect, I literally re-washed the begonia because I was so freaking mad that it got covered in dirt. And it still has some dirt on it, but she's gonna be okay. So then I just replanted her, kind of moved them around just a little bit to see how it goes. And up top you have the peperomia, and then you have my other Dracaena. Then you didn't see me add in the springtails, but there is a charcoal layer underneath the ABG mix that has springtails in it. Then I just added water to the cup that the springtails were in and dumped it all out just to make sure all the springtails in the cup are now seeded into the vivarium. And then I watered the plants.